Dear Seth, thanks to your videos, I joined my school mountain bike team. It's been a huge part of my life. The coaches are amazing, but my parents worked hard to help me get a bike, and now my younger sister Lucy wants to join the team too. Would you be willing to sponsor her? Thanks, Camden. Yes, I'm willing to sponsor Lucy, and actually I bought this bike on Facebook Marketplace to fix up and send to you guys in Utah. But now there's a big problem. See, according to their dad, Lucy is 4'9". I bought this tiny bike thinking it was gonna be small enough. I even got the upgrade parts, but it's gonna be way too big. I've only got 2 days to do this before I leave town, and we've gotta get them a bike quick before the season starts. And so I need a size small mountain bike yesterday. This one fits the bill on the guys responding. Let's take a field trip. Not an ideal situation, but this bike is actually nicer than I thought it was gonna be. Let's get it back to the shop. We paid about $200 for this and it fits the bill. It's a women's cross-country bike from 2011 and it's small with a really low standover height. Yet, it's got 29-inch wheels, so Lucy's gonna be monster trucking over everything. This fork needs service, but it'll more than do the job for Lucy. And the bike's got pretty decent parts all around, with a few weird things going on that we're gonna change. For example, it's got 2 different brakes, one hydraulic and one mechanical. It's got some whiskey grips, which are never good, and this unprotected bar end is going to core sample someone. I'm also not sure about the color scheme, maybe Italian flag, maybe Rastafarian, not sure, but it doesn't matter because we're gonna change just about everything. Let's tear this bike down. So the truth is, with a few little fixes, this bike would have been ready to go when I bought it, but we want to make it perfect for Lucy. We want to make it something she's proud to ride, and when she grows out of it, we want it to be perfect for someone else. You know how we do here, we're gonna go overboard. So now that we got our frame all cleaned up and ready to go, we're gonna be installing a dropper post, a tiny one, but I have to drill a hole in the frame to route the cable. Last time I did that, the response from you guys was, cool, we do that too. So I'm glad you're not a bunch of wimps. We're gonna do that again, install a grommet, and it'll be ready to go for later, and then we'll move on to the fork. All right, change of plans. I was not looking to open a can of worms with this fork because I just bought it an hour ago. I didn't have parts ready, and it turns out I don't have the right wiper seal for it. So I'm gonna see if I can overnight something for tomorrow, and we'll move on to the rest of the bike. Okay, it says I can get this by tomorrow for $50. That's just the shipping fee. We're gonna have to come up with a plan B here. This is what we call opening up a can of worms. Go into the bike attic and see what we can find. Okay. All right, not looking good. I have a bunch of tapered options, but it's a straight head tube. I've got a Suntour 29-inch fork that's gonna fit, but it's super heavy, and I don't wanna do Lucy like that. I've got a RockShox Judy, but it's for $27.5. It's not gonna fit those wheels and tires, so we're gonna have to get creative. All right, Hail Mary, we're gonna see if Pat has something laying around. Yes, he does! We're going to Squatch. I'm so used to bike shops not having things in stock that I sometimes forget that Squatch does.
What's up?
What's up, man? You got my seals?
Yeah, I got seals for you.
Oh, no way you're gonna press them in for me? Heck yeah.
Just do it now.
I forget that 32mm wipers are not...
They still exist.
They still exist.
I'm happy with that.
All we gotta do is fill it with bath oil and service the uppers. Right, Oscar? Apparently this fork is the gift that keeps on giving. This spring is supposed to have some heat shrink tubing at the bottom. It's all torn and it's been moving around. If we leave it off, it's not gonna damage anything, but it might be noisy. Let me see if I can find a replacement. This piece of heat shrink tubing right here is the right diameter, but it's got this sticky stuff on the inside end. It's really heavy. I think it's gonna impede the movement of that spring. So what's the purpose of that heat shrink tubing? Well, when this is inside the stanchion and you're going hard in the paint, it can move like this a little bit and tap the inside of the stanchion tube, making noise. And so that heat shrink tubing is there just to stop the noise from happening. We can use a piece of inner tube. This damper is replace only. It's not user serviceable, seems fine, but there's oil in there that gets grody that we can change out. Now it's a used bike, it doesn't have to look perfect, but that lockout switch is an easy fix. So that awful sound is the anodization coming right off of that thing so we can repaint it. What a day. We found the bike, we found a service kit for this fork. Tomorrow we have to put this entire bike together because if we don't, we're out of time. All right, well that's curing. Let's get this looking like a bike. First up, cranks. The cranks that came on the bike are excellent, except they're 170 millimeter. My cranks aren't even that long. Lucy's gonna need shorter ones, like these 152 millimeter cranks. It's technically a downgrade because these are square taper, but they're gonna be great for Lucy, and they're still gonna be long enough for her to get some leverage. And we're gonna make some other upgrades to make sure she has a good range of shifting. Next up, we need to install a headset, and in my headset parts bin, I was able to find 2 bearings. The old one is just way too grody for me to put back in and feel good about it. And naturally, when installing a headset, we install the fork and the much shorter stem so that we can bring the handlebars closer to Lucy. We're also installing a set of trail handlebars with a little bit more sweep for those rough trails in Utah. I cut these down to 720 millimeters for reasons that should be obvious. So from here, we're gonna start mounting all the components so we can get the bike dialed in. The bike came with a pretty good derailleur. This SLX though is not going to work with the larger cassette we're gonna install. For that, we're gonna need the Shimano Q's 10-speed. We're also gonna mount a lever for the dropper post and install some grips. We'll get all this stuff adjusted once we run some housing and cables. And to stop that bike, we're gonna give her matching hydraulic disc brakes. If you remember, this bike came with 2 different brakes, which is kind of weird. And that cable housing, it's not gonna be red and green. Actually, Lucy's father told me that her favorite color is purple. The bike has got a lot of green in it, but actually, purple goes pretty well with green. And so I'm gonna use whatever accents I can to bring that color into this bike for Lucy. All right, something I didn't consider. Look at this over here. The cable bosses are on the top of the bike, and then our dropper post comes in from the bottom. And so this cable is gonna make a 180-degree bend. In a moment, we'll see if it still works smoothly. All right, it works. I hate this a lot, but we're gonna have to live with it, and we'll see how close it gets to the rear tire. Speaking of which, we're gonna have to set up these wheels. They came with cross-country tires, and actually they look brand new. But they're going in the parts bin because we're gonna add some knobbier tires just in case. We're installing a CST Jackrabbit in the rear to roll fast, and a knobby Rockhawk in the front for some grip. These wheels are not tubeless compatible, but we're gonna install TPU inner tubes to save some weight, And I 3D printed some adapters for the valve holes so we can use Presta stems. And of course that 10-speed cassette. So with the wheels on the bike, we can install the chain, dial the shifting, and then move on to the finishing touches. We're still missing something. Okay, there's one more thing we have to do before we stare at this thing. We have to weigh it. I think I might have added some weight to it. I just want to make sure I didn't add too much. Weighs the same despite adding a dropper post, bigger tires, and a larger cassette. That's great. Let's stare at it. I'm actually in disbelief at how good this bike looks. That is the one thing that had me worried. I was worried about the green and everything, but I guess it was just how everything clashed the way it was. This is the tiniest 29er I've ever seen, and so I have to take it for a ride, if only to shake it down to make sure it's good for Lucy, right? Okay, I am glad that I tested this bike. I have a few concerns. First, the good. The geometry of this bike is great, and I was expecting this fork to feel like an entry-level coil fork, like an XTC 30 or something. Does not. It feels way better. Everything seems to run smoothly, but there's a squealing sound coming from the rear wheel. Does not sound like brake squeal. Could be the hub or the free hub body. We're gonna have to dig in. The last thing's kind of expensive. Let's go back to the shop. You hear that? It's in this rear hub. Everything's super clean and smooth and happy in here, but I don't know, I would feel a little bit better with some grease. See, the squeaking sound was this little rubber O-ring here on the edge. Now the other issue is this crankset, the 152.5mm crankset that I put on for Lucy. Feels fine to me, I have bikes with cranks that length, but I had an even better crankset in the parts bin, and I just feel guilty for not using it. 145mm 5-dev crankset, I'm gonna have to put it on. One other boneheaded move, I drilled the dropper post hole after I put the bottom bracket bearing in, and so you can see the shavings on top of it. It wouldn't hurt anything because everything's inside of here, but I don't know, it's just not very professional. And if we're going this far, so take a good long stare at this bike, because in a moment, it's getting shipped off to Lucy with those new cranks and the dirt on the tires from my test ride. But I think we're forgetting about someone. Camden, aka Brother of the Year, wrote me that email which got me interested in doing this project, and he didn't ask for anything for himself. He was praising everyone from his coaches to his parents for being so supportive. And you know what? We're gonna put something in the box for him. We're gonna send with this bike some stickers, a set of Crank Brothers Stamp 7 pedals, and a Pedro's toolkit I had left over from that review video so that he can get started working on his own bike and maybe even his sister's. Look, if you've been watching these videos for a while, you know that I can be a somewhat careless bike mechanic, but I do try to send these bikes away safe and in the best working condition possible. So it's been a week and Lucy has her bike. I arranged with a local bike shop to have it assembled for them, and she was tearing at the box before they even got it there. It was a great success. She's already done a practice. She's already ridden a whole bunch, even clocked some Strava miles. I don't think this could have turned out any better. And Camden, you're a good brother. I don't know if I would have done the same for either of my sisters at your age. If you like these flip bike videos, there's a big playlist below where you can binge them. I hope you enjoyed hanging out with me today, tinkering around with some bikes in the shop. I hope you learned something, and if you didn't, I hope you at least found this video entertaining. Thanks for riding with me today, and I'll see you next time.
Whatever you do, don't smile.